That's fun.
Your hair is fun.
Mm-hmm. We're beautiful.
Oh, Nicholas. All right.
Hello, welcome to week 4.
Yeah.
Oh.
You hung in here with us. That's pretty awesome.
And if we didn't scare you away last week with our toy show and tell.
Which I will get posted. I had some computer issues this week, but
That's okay.
it happens.
And so this week we hope that you take some time for yourself after you watch this, because we have a feeling it could bring up some memories for people or different issues. But this week is trauma and how that relates to your sexual health. Because things that happened to us in the past really shape where we go forward, and each one of us is kind of bring it from a different perspective, and hopefully one of our perspectives will touch bases with you, whether it's in a minor way or even in a major way. And so we're really going to encourage you afterwards, if you have any questions or bring something up, to feel free to contact one of us. Our contact information will be below the video.
That's right.
So again, I'm Erika Price.
I'm Sarah Ferguson.
I'm Nicole Ronningen. And today we're going to talk about trauma and how it relates to our sexuality and just the ability to feel empowered, and the fact that it is a journey, and none of us have arrived, and that's okay. And it looks different for all of us because, our expression of sexuality is so different. Our experiences of sexuality, our context and framework are also different. But we do have a lot of shared things just because of shared humanity and the way that we're wired. And so it's really fun to explore, and talk about things that maybe we weren't taught or weren't openly discussed in our lives, and give you guys a safe forum, and give us a safe forum. And I know even this last, 3 weeks leading up to this have actually been really healing for me, just to be able to share parts of my story. And so that in and of itself is really healing. So I don't know, Erika, you were going to talk about your experience, and then I'll go, and then Sarah. Does that sound good today?
Yeah, that sounds great. So for me, I know in one of the previous videos I said that I'm a cancer survivor with some sort of long-term chronic illnesses that happened because of it. 3 years ago, basically 3.5 years ago, I thought there was something wrong, and I didn't know what it was, and I kept going to the doctor, and they kept telling me I had a bladder infection. I kept saying, I don't have a bladder infection. And they kept giving me the meds, and they kept saying, well, maybe you have you have a partner that maybe has, that's a carrier for it, what's that could happen, which I didn't know, but I was like, no, that's not the case. And they kept being treated, and finally, I had a doctor that said, okay, well, we're going to do this one more antibiotic, and this is much stronger, and if it doesn't do anything, I want you to come back and see me in 4 days. So I waited the 4 days, and I went back in, and they sent me to the hospital, and they said, we can't get you approved for this, but if you go to the hospital and tell them these things, you'll get you can get a CAT scan or an MRI or, an ultrasound, whatever they need. Well, they come back, and I'm all day at one of the local hospitals, and they come back and they say, we're going to call our OBGYN who's on call. And I got scheduled for a biopsy, and she said, I had an appointment for like 6 days later, and she called me the very next Monday or Tuesday and said, I wanted to let you know so you didn't have to wait. And you hear the big word, that's the C word, cancer.
Yeah.
And you freak out, and it changes everything you've ever thought that was normal. And it doesn't matter how prepared you are or how many people in your life have had cancer.
Or even how many survivors
Yeah.
It's still scary.
It's because for every survivor, you also know somebody who probably has not survived and has died from either cancer or complications to cancer or the treatment, And so you hear this in your mind, and instantly it's like walls go up. And I was really fortunate because I was sitting at a table in Starbucks with one of my then employees, and we were having a meeting. And she looks at me when I got off the phone, and she goes, "Okay, what's wrong?" And I'm like, "Do I tell my employee this? It's the only person sitting in front of me." And so I told her. But I also knew that she had just finished going through the whole cancer process with her sister who had breast cancer. So I knew she was a safe person to tell. And as soon as I told her, she gave me the greatest advice I'd ever heard, and that it was, be prepared for other people when you tell them. Be emotionally ready, because they're going to cry, they're going to be angry, they're going to be mad, they're going to want to answer a million questions.
They'll shut down.
They'll shut down.
Way too much advice.
They'll give you way too much advice. They'll tell you to drink apple cider vinegar and that'll cure everything. I mean, seriously.
Put some oils on it.
Put some oils on it. That's
Not
it.
sensitive, guys. Not sensitive to do that.
No.
We love our oils, but good Lord.
I know.
Right.
And you
That
know,
comes later.
right. So yeah, you go meet with an oncologist, and they kind of lay it out on the table for you, and you just are processing information. But during that whole time of processing information, what you're also doing is you're shutting out all these people around you, because it's like our body's natural response is to pull everything inside, internalize it until you can externalize it. And so I really kind of shut down some of my support network or people that I thought were my support
A
network.
lot of her support network.
Because I didn't know how to, one, accept the help or accept the support, because I've always been a person who gave support,
Right.
not the person who needed the support.
Right.
And I told a couple of people, and I asked them not to tell other people.
Oh, no.
And some of them did, and I was angry. And but really, later, after processing through the whole entire thing, I wasn't really angry at them. I was angry that they had the ability to tell when I couldn't.
Right.
So then I find out. So I'm 40 years old, and I chose many years ago to not have children. But when they tell you your first thing you're going to have done is you're having a complete hysterectomy at 40, you start to think, well, did I make all the right decisions? So was not having kids really the right thing? And my oncologist looked at me and said, do I need to send you through one of the psych evals? Because sometimes they do that for people to make sure that, and I said, oh gosh, no, I made that decision when I was 13. And she goes, okay. Sure you did. Well, I did, but
She's like, yeah, but are you okay now that it's final?
Yeah.
And I didn't really have a choice, because I had two types of cancer. I had endometrial, which is the lining of the uterus, and I had ovarian cancer too. And they weren't metastasized. They're two separate types of cancer, different grades, different stages, just growing simultaneously, which is really rare, but who cares? It was rare. It was fascinating.
Great, I'm an anomaly.
Exactly.
That makes me feel so much better.
Right.
So then you have a hysterectomy.
Woo!
And they take out everything. And what does that do? It throws you into instant menopause. And because you have cancer, you can't do hormone replacements, including they recommend not doing natural hormone replacements, because anything that increases your estrogen level post hysterectomy for cancer survivors increases your chance of getting breast cancer.
Right.
And so my doctor's like, unless you are just dying, I don't recommend doing any of it. And
Oh my God.
so I was healing from a complete hysterectomy.
How to be sensitive 101.
Right.
Not that.
No, I love my oncologist.
Yeah.
She's amazing. If you happen to live in Spokane and ever need an oncologist for I'm just going to call it reproductive organs.
Right.
Dr. Grossen at Cancer Care Northwest is amazing. Yes, I'm plugging her.
That's awesome.
But so now I've had a hysterectomy. I'm going through menopause. I'm doing it all at once. And then 6 weeks after finishing my hysterectomy, I went into it and was scheduled for 8 rounds of chemo. I ended up doing 6 and some internal radiation. Now you wonder what that does to your body. So now I'm in menopause with no hormone replacements. I've had a hysterectomy, and a complete one, which means they take everything, including your cervix, and now they take your vagina and make they call it vaginal at the end. Basically, cut your cervix out. They do this little fold, and they surgically staple and suture the end of your vagina to create an ending because they have to have some way to close off your body.
Yeah.
And because I had 2 different kinds of cancer, the chemo was for the ovarian, and then I had internal radiation, which basically sounds as fun as that is. They take a dildo-shaped device. It's attached to the regular radiation machine, and they insert it inside of you. And it has a little thing that radiates like this. So they're radiating the area in which they've sewn or stapled on the inside of you. So
It does not sound pleasant.
not really.
No.
It's not horrible. It just kind of burns for a little while. But through that whole thing, then they tell you, okay, so now you've had all this stuff done. Now you have to use a dilator in order for you to not have too much scar tissue. I was really lucky, and I don't have a ton of scar tissue, just like a normal amount.
Mm-hmm.
But it also shortens the length of your vagina. So having sex changes. Not only do you not have the moisture, your hormones are different. You don't feel the same way about your body. Your parts have changed shapes and sizes.
Well, they've radiated areas that would have been sensitive, so
That
they
are-
have to figure out different ways for
They're no longer
sensation.
they're no longer sensitive. You just sort of feel cruddy about yourself and you feel cruddy about yourself because it's not a short process. It was 9 months from sort of start to finish of surgery, treatment, the whole business. And it's like, that's how you live your life is that. That's all it is. It's you have a treatment, you feel sick, you have a doctor's appointment, you still feel sick, your immune system is shot to hell, so they recommend not having sex. They're okay with intimacy, but even they say not the 4 days right after chemo because you can transfer a certain amount of the chemo drugs to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like a ton of things. You just don't feel sexy at all. I mean, you don't even, you might feel like you want to be intimate with somebody, but then maybe they touch you and you just want them to stop because your body hurts, your bones hurt, your skin hurts, all your hair on your entire body has fallen off. And I was one of those people that literally lost every hair on my body. By the time it was done, I think I had like 6 eyelashes on one side and like 12 on the other, including my eyebrows fell off. And, I did some fun things. I had fun hats. I had henna done to my head, and all things to make yourself feel better about yourself because you just don't. And I think that it's taken me a long time. I mean, it's 3 years, and I still don't feel like I've recovered from the trauma portion of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a daily struggle. And then I ended up with some long-term health effects that, again, don't necessarily lead to making you feel like, let's jump in the sack today. And it also, because I shut down a lot of those, and protected myself because you have to, it was hard to open back up those sort of channels of energy. And I've done some serious work, including I've done a couple of fire walks. I've done some alternate energy work. I've had my body smudged. I've been oiled. What else have I done? Oh yeah, I did a spiritual hook pull. All these things to release that out of my body, and
Shave your head.
shave my head a second time this last summer.
Because you wanted to.
I did.
Yeah, not because someone was being forced on you.
Because I wanted to own it.
Yeah.
And I think that through the,
I just want to high five you.
the first time we did a fire walk.
These women are badasses. We're all badasses, but these are the people you want in your tribe.
Well, that's exactly it. As I did it surrounded by people that I feel like are tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I walked on fire, I wrote a note, and all I literally wrote on there was F cancer.
Yeah.
And threw it in the fire and let it burn. And then I walked across the fire, And Sarah was holding one hand, and my friend Stormy was holding the other hand. Got to the end, and he yelled, she's a cancer survivor. And I felt really great because it was the first time I'd done something post-cancer that felt like it was something for me. And then the next year, I wrote a whole thing about letting go and moving forward. Because people always say, "Oh, well, you survived cancer. Great. Now what are you going to do?" Well, I don't.
Whatever I want.
But I don't think people realize that it once you've had cancer and you've experienced an entire treatment process, it's different than somebody who's had like skin cancer and they have the spot removed, and that's the extent of what they have done.
Right.
I think that's easier to move past than somebody who spends 9 months or 2 years or even longer going through a treatment process. And then this last year, instead of walking on fire, I wanted to, but it was like I let go of like all of this anger that I was holding on to. And it was funny because the fire is burning and it's right in front of me and it's super hot, and I'm letting go. And at least the emotion cycle that was running through me is, first, a good friend of mine, Daphne, smudged me, and she did a little extra on me because she could tell. And I'm sitting in my chair watching the fire burn because you have to wait till it gets down to coals. And the whole time, all I'm cycling with is I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm mad. And and I was sobbing, and I didn't want people to touch me. And then somebody outside of my kind of normal tribe was kind of just doing this to me. And I think that, and then later a good friend of mine, her and I just sat and held each other and cried for a while because we emotionally were both purging something. But within a couple of weeks after that, because it takes some talking after you go through an emotional purge like that I finally felt like I'm a little more myself emotionally. Still struggle, but I think
we all do. I mean,
but I think that it was like an opening up of that, ready for intimacy again, ready for, new exciting things on the horizon. What can I do to move forward? How do I move forward? How do I help other people move forward?
Yeah, I know for me too, using like my healing journey to help other people, not to bypass the work that I'm doing, but just to be like, does anybody want to come with me while I'm doing this? Because it feels so much better to go through it with other people. Just talking to a friend yesterday, and we had dealt with a similar struggle in our marriages, and at that point in our life, we did not feel like we could open up to anyone. And so we were simultaneously struggling with something, but we never connected and leaned on each other for strength because we didn't feel like we could be vulnerable in that way. And just to like both share that yesterday, and then just to be like, yeah, that lie that I have to keep this all to myself is messed up. And like, she's a deep friend. We've been friends for over 10 years. But that was back in the beginning of our friendship, and I didn't know that I could go there with her because I didn't know that I could go there really with anybody. And so now to be able to say, these are my tribe, like, is huge. Because that's part of the healing process.
It is. And, I lost people along the journey.
And that's kind of a mercy. You're like, those are not your people.
No, and you realize why they're not your people.
Thank you for saving me the energy. Like, I don't know, I kind of like, I'm really grateful when people fall off because I'm like, oh, I didn't just keep banging on that door, or putting deposits in that bank and then having it like go bankrupt. It just disappeared. It's like, oh, you saved me so much time and energy, and I can focus on people that like really matter now.
Well, and I had
that's just how I look at it.
I had another friend who told me afterwards that she felt really bad that she couldn't be there sort of during the process, but it brought up because both her grandfather and her dad had both passed away from cancer within the last 10 years. And she didn't realize how emotionally raw she was from those, and how she couldn't be a part of my journey, not because she didn't love me, but because she couldn't.
She didn't have capacity.
She didn't have capacity, which I actually really respected her while I was going through it because I didn't understand what was going on. But when we talked afterwards, and we've reconnected as friends now, but it took a little while for us to reconnect because
Yeah.
She didn't know how to be there to support me. And, you know, it's interesting how different people can support different things in our lives.
Mhm.
And it's okay for them not to, but in order for them to stay in my tribe, they have to tell me why.
Yes. Yes.
Because then I'm like, oh,
Oh,
okay.
I get it now. So
Yeah.
being self-aware is a really important prerequisite to being in a tribe of women and men, you know, who are your people. Just being self-aware and communication.
And know that it's not a journey that ends. I mean, nothing we do, if we end our journey, we're done. I mean, like, you're emotionally stunting yourself. So I know that I will always have a cancer journey. As a cancer survivor, you experience a lot of survivor remorse. It's similar to people who've had sexual traumas in their lives. A lot of them have survivor remorse too, for different various reasons. And I just encourage women, sort of my ending to this is, listen to your bodies. Our bodies tell us a lot. The sort of the symptoms of ovarian cancer are bloating, feeling full after eating, but being hungry again really shortly after, digestive issues, low back pain, irregular periods. These are all symptoms of other things, aren't they, women?
Right.
I mean, they're all symptoms. If you take them individually.
That's why it's a hard one to catch.
Yeah, they call it the silent killer of women. But I encourage women, if you have more than one of those, talk to your doctor, because it's such an easy thing for them to test for. Because if I wouldn't have pushed for my own, being an advocate for my own healthcare, one of mine was a super aggressive type of cancer. And if I would have just sort of dealt with it, because I'd kind of been dealing with it for a year and a half, I mean, my ovarian tumor was this big. So it tells you it wasn't just overnight.
No.
It probably started, it was completely encapsulating one of my ovaries. It probably had started, we're guessing 18 months, maybe 2 years. And by the time we caught it, it had moved into that fast growing. So it could have gone from this to into my, bowels and into your liver or kidneys or into your bones, into your lymphatic system. And once that happens, then you're just fighting an uphill battle for the rest of your life.
Right. So even if your doctor says you have, what do they call it? Abnormal. Even if it's an abnormal pap smear, don't ignore it. Go back in. You have to do what your doctor says when it comes to that, because it can be a matter of months, and then all of a sudden you have like a big tumor. Like you have to go in and make sure that you're taking care of that. I know a lot of women who don't. They get a warning sign like that and they won't go. And it's so frustrating to me, because that kind of illness is, you have to go to the doctor for that. You just have to, because you have to be able to keep up with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of treatment you want to do later or whatever if you do have it, but you just need to be aware the whole entire time going through that. And that's something I'm going through right now, is just keeping on top of that.
Yeah, don't be a turtle.
Yeah, don't
stick your head in
And
the
you
sand.
always say, because she's told me, because I've had a few scares, was it 2 years now? And she just always said, it's nothing until it's something. And that's so true. It is nothing until it's actually something.
Yeah, somebody told me that really early on, and I used that through the entire process. It's nothing until it is something. And then even now when I have my follow-up visits and, they'll say, oh, well, this level is off. We want to do another test for this. I'm always like, it's nothing until it is something.
Right?
Yeah, to not carry that fear.
Yeah, because the fear
causes
That's
stress
crippling.
and causes even more
That's
crap
where
in
the
your body.
trauma comes from, really, is the fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh my gosh, I have no control.
No.
And fear keeps you alive. I mean, fear is there for something.
It's adaptive, but
But
you can't sustain.
you can't live
It
on
can
it.
be the fear of the illness. It
live
can
on
feel the fear of it coming back. It can be the fear of no one's going to love my body the way it is now. I'm not going to, I've got some really amazing epic scars. I have a scar that goes from my belly button to the top of the pubic mound. I've got this lovely one here. So, but those scars are our stories.
Yeah.
And
Whether you can see them or not.
right.
Yeah. Which is really powerful if we don't allow shame to
Exactly.
rob us of community and connection, really. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, like, as far as the physical aspects of healing, what have you had to do differently? Like, because you've had to totally change, like you talked about body mapping and, different things. Do you have any?
Well, I gained a bunch of weight while I was going through chemo, and everybody's like, "You gained weight going through chemo?" And some people, especially women, men are more likely to lose weight. Women have a tendency to either maintain or gain, and part of that is the amount of steroids you're on.
Yeah.
When your body's being pumped full of high-dose steroids every 10 days for months, and my body responds to steroids in that fashion. Like every time I have to have a round of prednisone, I gain 10 pounds. It doesn't matter if I don't change anything I've eaten. It doesn't matter anything. It just makes me gain weight. So I met with a dietitian, and she was like, as long as you can eat food, you're fine. And sometimes after chemo, all I wanted was a super greasy cheeseburger. And everybody's like, that's disgusting. I'm like, it's the only thing that would, if it stays down, you kind of eat it, right? Right.
Yeah.
And so post that, once I sort of healed from the chemo and my immune system kind of started to do a little bit of a recovery, and it's still kind of crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay on guard.
Yeah. And I think I had to relearn my body completely because its responses are different. Things that I used to find pleasurable aren't anymore. It's simple things like the shortening of the vagina changes any sort of insertion, whether that is, somebody's penis or somebody or a toy. I mean, I'm this much shorter.
Yeah.
And so you have to, partners have to pay attention to that, and you have to pay attention to that. You have to really plan for lubrication because sometimes it's just not there. And that's part of the menopausal part. That normally now at 43 or between that 40-43 window, women aren't talking about that.
Right.
None of my friends were talking about that because it's not something that they were going through.
Aging is such a taboo thing, and really it's just a rite of passage.
Right. And most women who have hysterectomies young go on hormone replacements. I do have to say, after doing it sort of cold turkey, because that's what I'm going to call it, once you're done.
No support.
No.
Damn it.
But once you've done that, I think the risks of hormone replacements, I think people really have to pay attention to what those risks are and decide for themselves, is it worth it? Like, can you handle 6 months of kind of being crazy?
No, I couldn't.
I was
already nuts enough, man.
I think for me, I was going to
How
chemo
strong
at the
is
same
your support
time.
network at home? Really, is that can they handle it more than can you handle it?
Well, and I think while you're, for me, I was already going through chemo, so I'm already going through these crazy rides of sort of sick waves that
So it probably didn't matter.
No.
You weren't going to notice the change anyway.
No, between the high doses of Benadryl and the chemo drugs and the steroids, really, what was what's one more thing? But I wish that was a piece of the support ahead of time, was talking about what that was going to be in addition to. And I think that the more women who are in that 30 to 50 window that go through early hysterectomies talk about it with their friends and their daughters and their nieces, and shows them that eventually, because they could go through it too, that it's okay.
And because we're missing those elders in our village, because our generation of parents didn't talk about these things.
Oh gosh, no.
Stereotypically, there's always the exception, but we are becoming the elders of our village, and so that's why we're talking about this, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think so.
As far as sexual health goes, I think you have to be okay when you've dealt with a trauma of redefining what that is. And not being stuck on, well, I used to be able to do this, or this used to be great, or this used to feel good, or this used to be pleasurable, and being okay with what the new norm is and moving forward.
So for some people that would look like grieving a loss, and some people would be like, cool, an adventure, I get to discover myself all over again, but that really depends on people's personalities and temperaments, and then their partners too, I think.
Well, and I've heard that from people who lose their partners.
Yeah.
That they go through a lot of the same things.
Like divorce is huge.
Or
and
death.
And death, yeah.
Either one.
Yeah.
Because somebody knew all their scars.
Their parts.
And their parts, and now they're older and they feel more self-conscious about their bodies, or maybe they feel less self-conscious, but they don't know how to tell a new person how that looks. Because you grew with the other person when you were young.
Yeah, that would be not ever looking forward to that.
No.
No, but so like what kind of emotions would you have wanted support? Because you didn't really have boils back then.
No. I think having a sort of a balancing, because it's a rite of emotions, something to combat heat flashes.
So peppermint,
Yes.
mix in a spritzer.
Calming.
Yeah, balance would be good.
Things to help you
Serenity.
sleep. I think all of those would have been really great, but also uplifting things, because they're
Wild orange.
Yep, wild orange.
Never wild orange. Let's have some.
It's my favorite.
It is her
I know, we're like,
I
don't you guys want to be with us right now so you can smell?
think that it's interesting because somebody asked me if I would go through chemo again, and I mean maybe a little change down the road, but 3 years out I'm a resounding no. I think that if somebody said, especially if it was a reoccurrence based on the cancers that I already had, I think I'd say, well, give me how long do I have? And if somebody said, I think you have 3 to 10 years, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go live my bucket list.
Right.
Because I don't know if I can go through it again. Not that I would say other people shouldn't. That's just my own. I think I would just enjoy, which is what I'm trying to do now, is enjoy my life as if someday it's right. Because that's the cancer survivor remorse, that you're just going to get it again. And so in my mind, I'm living my life as if I could have cancer again. Right. Meaning, I'm going to enjoy every moment. I'm going to do all the things.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, and all of us need to live our life that way, really. It's like, this could be our last day.
Yep.
Make it epic, or at least like keep short lists. I feel like so much of life is wasted with bitterness and unforgiveness, or just being stifled by our fears or things like that, where we don't have that fullest expression of who we were designed to be.
And my story was about cancer, but I feel as if the things that I went through are going to be similar to the same things that people who find out they have an autoimmune disorder, or have any other major illness or surgeries where it really is a life-changing experience. We will experience some of the same things. And I think that knowing and building your emotional support network, even if it's not in person, there's some really great online support groups for different things. And I encourage women who don't have a local tribe to find to find those online resources. Like I found one that actually gave me more information than any of the doctors did, called Hister Sisters.
Oh, cool.
And it's for women who have had hysterectomies. And then they have sort of a subgroup of that is for women who've had hysterectomies due to cancer. But I found out like what my like healing processes and what my body is going through, and how things, sort of rearrange themselves, and what things to look out for, and what things to ask your doctor from the website. And I would have never known.
Well, and knowing what to expect and kind of normalizing something that could potentially be traumatic or is traumatic lessens the trauma, because then your body goes, okay, I can settle down now. I don't have to be in high alert. Whereas that unknown and alone feeling, that just keeps the trauma going.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Well, I know, Nicole, you want to talk about another type of trauma. Sorry I talked so long.
I want to talk about, no, I'm just kidding.
I know.
No, you're perfect.
This is a really big thing to talk about.
It is a big thing. So, we're talking about sexual health, and my journey has been, just the occasional like boyfriend in high school kind of thing, and we'd get to a certain point, and then I would have these unexplained triggers, and I was fortunate enough to have really respectful boyfriends for the most part, they kind of knew something was up. They didn't tell me like everything okay, but they I just look back and I go, oh my gosh, that should have been a waving red flag. But because my abuse was something that happened when I was really little, I didn't have concrete memories of it. And so I just always pushed it away and said, no, that's not me. But like, I could never watch anything where there was sexual assault or child abuse or anything like that of a sexual nature, because it was so triggering. And I just thought, oh, I'm just really sensitive.
Some repressed memories.
Yeah, and I am sensitive. So I just kind of chalked it up. But then, I get married and I have this really great husband, and he's super respectful and awesome. And yeah, we're totally like fundy Christians, but it was a pretty good gig. Like I've had no complaints with him, but there was just always these things that didn't add up for me. And I can't even tell you, I think pretty much every time we would have sex, I would at least have to stop him at least once. Say, hang on just a second, and then it finally put two and two together, like it'd be certain sensations, or like, you can't rub my low back, or I just come out of my skin. And that's how I was awakened in the middle of the night to be molested. And so that was just like a really triggering thing, but it took me a really long time to put those things together. And the oils had such a big part to play in that, because they access our limbic brain. And so just be mindful of that. It was a very gentle process. I actually recalled the instance, or one of the instances, or just it all kind of clicked, I guess, because it wasn't like a movie memory. It was more like sensations and smells and, just like those kind of memories, because I was little. In the middle of having sex. And I was like not destroyed by it. Like I was able to finish, and then just kind of, I sat and just meditated with it and prayed and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And it was like my little girl self told my grown-up self, and I believed her, and then she could leave. It was like I integrated, and it was actually really beautiful. And to be able to say that, if I didn't have the emotional piece that I had been working really closely with a mentor, and then, I started using the oils as a personal lubricant. There's jasmine, there's cinnamon, there's some oils in there that help with sexual harmony and healing and stuff. And so it was just divinely orchestrated, really. I just can't really explain it any other way. But I just am really passionate about sharing this, because it's been so transforming for me. And now, like, so that was last February. It's February now. Just this last year has been so much like releasing. You know, I've done lots of like meditations. I do sound baths where they do drumming and crystal and Himalayan or Tibetan singing bowls and yoga nidra, which I was taught that was like voodoo witchcraft, but it's actually really awesome. Our bodies are designed to respond to sound, light, oils, anything with a frequency and or a vibration. And so I'm just like, you know what, it doesn't matter what other people think. This is what I need right now. This is what's healing me. This is what's helping me. But I wanted to share some of the oils. And it's interesting because I also, like, I have kids who are really sensitive. And so another piece of the emotional journey has been how to help support them and me, because we would just trigger each other all the time. If you know anything about trauma, there's like this ACEs test, and there's a test of 10 adverse childhood experiences that people have had. And I went to this workshop. I was the only parent. It was all social workers and therapists and stuff, and they allowed parents to come. And I was like, oh, I want to learn about this, because they had a trauma-aware yoga teacher that was going to be talking, and I was teaching yoga, and that was another huge part of my healing process, is processing through my body. Like, things released and unlocked doing yoga as well. But there's a trauma-sensitive way to do yoga, and I wanted to learn more about that for my classes. So, you know, again, divine, I just, everything happens for a reason. I'm there, and one of the speakers is like, I have a 9 on my ACEs score, and his life was like horrific. Like, he had just gone down some rough roads and had so much to share that was just heartbreaking. And I just was like, wow. And then they actually put the test up there, and I take it, and I have all 10. Maybe they're not the extremes that other people have had, which I'm super grateful for. Because my family, you know, they really did the best that they could with what they had. But I have some shit. And so I was like, oh my goodness, how am I even functioning?
Right.
But these oils came into my life at that point when I was willing to cry out and like ask for alternative ways of helping, because my context, you know, there just weren't any options available to me in the community that I was in. Everything that I'm now doing to help my kids and myself, including therapy, was seen as like, you don't go to therapists because they're, you know, secular and they're going to lead you away from God or whatever.
Become a witch or something.
Yeah, which I have a really fun sign that a friend got me that says the witch is in or the witch is out for my office. But anyways, that's fun. I'm embracing it. So anyways, all that to say that once I really got all these pieces coming together for me, it's been really awesome, but it's a process. And I have days when I'm doing really good, and then the days when I am not doing well. But I know what my triggers are, or I know what it feels like to be triggered. So then I'm like, what triggered me? You know, even after the second video we did talking about some of that stuff from my past, just because for me, religion and church and God and my upbringing and sex and all of that was all really connected. And so I've had like a whole year of like deconstructing that, and then trying to reconstruct it in a healthy way, in a more love-centered way instead of a fear-centered way.
And somebody described that tangling as like your jewelry box when all your necklaces and bracelets are all intertwined, right? And you think, I just want to wear that one necklace today. Right?
I saw this all.
And so you just decide you're gonna. No, we all know what we're talking about.
I know.
And so you untangle all of them.
My sister works for a jeweler. I'm always like, how do you get your necklaces untangled?
Right.
Yeah, so that's perfect.
And so you untangle all the business, and you think there's got to be a better way to store these, because you can either just shove them back in the jewelry box, which they're going to end up in that giant ball again, or you can find an alternative way.
But for some people, including me, I thought the only way was the jewelry box.
Right.
I didn't know you could make like a really cool little rack and hang them individually.
Yeah, or have a
because
little
it was-
tree or.
That was like the whole presentation.
Yeah.
You know, was like God and like way over the top discipline that was abused and you know all
Those
of
were
it.
your necklaces and
all of it
bracelets.
was just in there, and so you know, just being able to like take it apart piece by piece and like God, Jesus, love, the Holy Spirit, that gets to stay. Everything else has to go. Like, that's it. And that's where I'm at right now. But it's super interesting because that's scary because your whole community has been all wrapped up in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start talking about things that bring up shame for other people and they're not okay with it sometimes. And but just having the courage to find your people and find what works for you and you know,
the courage to let the people go that need to go.
yeah. And it's interesting, like I met Sarah at church. But so there are like some really good friendships that I have still from just really awesome people that I met in church. And there's nothing wrong with church. It's just that was a recurring trigger for me. And so I had to like step back from it for a little bit. But yeah, it's just super interesting. So as far as oils go, I've done a lot of work with Desiree Mangendog and Janet Marquez and their doTERRA leaders that have courses. One's using oils like you would use acupuncture, and one is using oils like you would do reflexology. So it's been really fun. That's just kind of my thing that I love, and it's kind of my woo. And we talk a lot about like thyme is the oil of forgiveness and putting it diluted because it's hot over your liver because that's where we store anger and unforgiveness. Helichrysum, just like it would close a physical wound, it actually helps if there's been a trauma, whether it's a bump on the head to a car accident to surgery where you know you have like a cutting. Because anything, even if they numb you, dental stuff, it can all cause trauma because your body still experiences the pain, even though your nerves don't register to your brain that there's pain. So there's trauma with any sort of procedure, and helichrysum is just a really great support for that.
Well, and something that interesting that I've recently learned is people with chronic pain, one of the biggest things is your body is still experiencing trauma, but because your dopamines are so off, that you know sometimes your body doesn't register the pain in the same way, and your body can only deal with pain in so many areas of your body at once. So you might have this crazy thing happening here, but because of what's going on here, you're not even going to feel it.
Right.
Or if you are, it's actually just going to make this one hurt more.
And I really saw that with my kids because we, you know, spanking is kind of like one of those topics where you're either really for it or really against it. I'm not going to get into that, but I did see like in the period of time where we were instructed that spanking was the way to go and we were participating in that, my kids would like walk in, you know, every kid has like that height where they walk into the edge of the counter and they hit their head and you're thinking, oh my gosh, are you going to come unglued? And they just keep going because like they were so desensitized to pain, and sometimes they would have to do like a really abrupt sensory thing to even jar them into being present because kids disassociate. And we just think, oh, he's just zoning out. No, he's not. But he's shell-shocked because he's been yelled at or hit or whatever.
Well, and sometimes it's physical too. Like sometimes they're just born with, like it takes their bodies longer to catch up to the point where they feel the pain and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of, and it happens in boys a lot. I feel like they
Yeah.
fall and crash and burn so many times more than little girls do. I feel like.
Most girls.
Or
My daughter was
harder.
climbing everything, but yeah, boys for sure.
Sometimes I feel like it takes them a little longer to catch up with all the signals.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that that's a side note, but I think that that comes back to the gender assignments that we give children. Is that it's okay for boys to be rough and tumble, but it's not okay for girls to.
Right, so we freak out less when the little boy falls rather than the little girl falls.
Or
right?
activities that we allow the little boys to do opposed to the little girls. They talk about that a lot, and families where they don't gender assign toys and activities, that they have a very similar experience. Whereas, so,
Yeah,
you know,
my daughter, she was like my only climber that I had, so she fell off of stuff. And
well, she's three other brothers.
yeah. But she, you know, just her temperament. She's
Mhm.
fearless. You know, I have video I post on Facebook of her learning to ride her bike. She just falls and she just gets back up. And she didn't want to get back on for a few days, you know, after the experience was done. But she's like, okay, right back out there. And
Mhm.
it's interesting too, just, you know, we shifted gears when she was little. And so she's not hardly ever been spanked. And
Mhm.
so we shifted gears and like, we put, you know, all of us in therapy and started doing some deep work and using the oils and doing more gentle, conscious parenting and getting some coping skills that weren't violent. And, you know, we were joking before the video, like, okay, now I yell, like I've scaled that back, but if you knew what it used to be, we're doing pretty good. Because again, I still get triggered. And so for me, a lot of support comes from the oils. And I like frankincense and myrrh are like dad and mom oils. Like, so they help me through like processing things with like not ever really feeling safe with my biological dad, even though I couldn't put my finger on like a concrete memory, just never feeling safe. And then my mom, you know, issues, my mom was great, but she was really young when she had me and she had her own trauma. And so just like trust and all those things and like learning to embrace like the divine feminine and masculine, where I was only taught that there was a masculine to the divine. And, you know, just even that's trauma for me because I'm like, wait a minute, if I'm created in the image of God, how come God's only a man? And, you know, and like, what about the earth? And what about, you know, these plants? And, you know, it's all healing and nurturing and supporting and just realizing that like there's a divine like ecosystem, and that's been a part of my healing journey. And
yeah, I have a friend who's Hindi, and that's something that I really learned from him and his family is they embrace both the masculine and feminine side of the divine.
How I'm like, what do I call God now? It's so weird.
And I mean, obviously they have
no gender.
I know.
in Hindi they have lots of different gods,
right?
but they still embrace that divine masculine and
Right.
femininity, which I think helps. Even though it's funny, you think as their culture is very
religion is just a way to try to make sense of everything, and every culture has their own way to make sense of it. And I don't think any
before
of us
I knew
get
them,
it.
I thought their religion was super, you know, patriarchal, and that it was. But when you look at how they treat
yeah,
not you
Not
see the bad people, but like the people who really are devout and really embrace their spirituality, they really use their women are. They're revered. Like the women are really the center of their lives, and they're the center of their families and the center of. That's why Ganesh is, you know, that's the elephant-looking one with all of the different arms. She's a super feminine deity in their world.
Yeah, it's so interesting how everybody kind of has their context, and then you know that becomes your reality, and then to be like, you know, almost 40, going, wait a second.
Yeah.
I think I have some things wrong here. And I think there are some things that I won't ever know. But what I do know is if it's like love focused and not fear focused, then I trust that. And so that's been really helpful too, which leads me to geranium. Geranium's been a huge player for me. I used to hate the smell of this. And that is a good clue that that's an area that you like need to work on. You're like, oh gosh, you know, like if you just want to throw it.
Problem.
Yeah, so I have a hack for that. Like you put it on the bottoms of your feet because, I mean, unless you're really not ready to go there, and that's okay to honor that because you can actually re-traumatize yourself by trying to force an issue. We need to be doing this intuitively. We need to be doing this honoring our process and our body and our nose.
See, like even her having it that far away is
you're
like
Oh,
Let me see it.
Why is it so
Because
strong?
it's like thousands of
It is,
flowers
though.
in
It
that
is.
bottle.
Yeah.
So to
But-
be fair, it's very, very.
But when I smelled it in the mixtures that you've done,
Mhm.
it actually is very pleasing.
Yeah, the first time I could tolerate this, my sister-in-law made me this cuticle stick, and it was just this yummy coconut oil that was really coconutty. It was not refined at all, and geranium, and I loved it in that. I just wanted to like wear it all the time. I wasn't even using it on my cuticles. I was like, my face wants this. So I just
Well, it's good for your face.
I know coconut oil and geranium is great for your skin as well, but the love and trust piece, and then you know,
Let's not be ready for that right now.
yeah. So if
Put on my
you're
feet.
if your
I know
nose
that's why.
isn't ready,
I know that's why.
but you would like some support in those areas that you know that those oils speak to, just put them on the bottoms of your feet for like a week or two, and then try it again, or put it in a blend, like one drop.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else that you like the smell of, like something like wood, you know, like a wood or a mint would be nice with a
Mhm.
floral. And so there's all kinds of ways people like to blend, but I just go like, how do I want to feel? When I go to my diffuser, how do I want to feel? And I take the lids off, and sometimes I'll hold them together. Oh my gosh, that's amazing, you know, and put it in there. Or sometimes I just intuitively go like, you know, just a couple, and an extra one jumps out. I'm like, oh, must needed to be in there. So I don't think you have to be too technical. You can be.
Well, no, what I'm
Perfuming
learning,
is
because
a
like
whole
this
other
morning,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, perfuming would be more exact.
Mm-hmm.
But that this morning I put vetiver and balance on my heart, and I didn't know that was instinct. Like I instinctually did that, and then I looked it up after because I was kind of curious, and those two go together, and I was like, oh well, I already knew.
Yeah. See, it's like we make it so.
So it's
hard
kind
and
of fun to let
complicated.
yourself pick
Yeah.
and choose as you feel.
Exactly. And I talked about vetiver being one of the oils that I can use when I am having sex to help me stay in my body. And patchouli will do that too. It's the oil of physicality, so it gets us in our body. Grapefruit and Slim and Sassy are great to help us love our body, and that would be really important after like a rape, or like you have to like go through all these body changes because you've had a surgery. Or just our culture is like hell-bent on helping us hate ourselves. So to combat that.
I bet you that would be really great for trans,
Yeah,
Mhm.
transgender
for
people.
body dysphoria.
For
And
sure. Yeah, or people that have like lost weight rapidly or gained weight. Like I gained 50 pounds in 1 year because of some trauma being triggered about 5 years ago. And it's taken me 5 years. I'm actually going to talk about it tomorrow in another video, so I won't go into it too much here, but it took me 5 years to figure out what my body was asking for. And it was this radical forgiveness piece that said it's safe to let go of this weight because you don't have to hide under it to keep yourself safe from being a target for energy vampire men or predators, because I grew up in a home with a predator, and so that was my way of protecting myself even from a little tiny girl.
When you said vampire or energy vampires, it kind of reminds me of kind of what Sarah's going to talk about.
Yeah. Segues.
Well, no, I mean it's sort of a natural segue.
No, really, I'm good. I'm done.
That's sort of a really natural segue because for me, it's always been women in my life who have been the energy vampires. And I didn't even understand what it was until I had a shaman that was sitting there with me tell me that my energy was like campfire.
Yeah.
And that I constantly have energy, and it can be, envision a campfire. You can have that smoldering log at the bottom that all it takes is adding a little more fuel, whether that be air or another piece of wood, and pretty soon you have a flame again. And you can add, the more you add to it, the bigger the flame gets. So the more energy that I'm around me, like sometimes when I'm just super emotionally drained, I have to go someplace where there's a lot of people that I'm not necessarily interacting with, but I'm able to like just sort of be there and get all the energy that's just being thrown around the room at me and kind of collect it. But in that same sense, if there's somebody who's an energy vampire and they're sitting in the same room as
They'll
me,
be like, Erika.
and I don't even notice it because it's like throwing wind or more fuel on a fire. It's just like you can just siphon off those pieces.
So, and I instinctively notice this about people. Like I notice when it's an energy vampire, but I just in the last year realized that that's what it was.
Yeah.
That was making me not want to be around that person.
Yeah.
I would physically leave the room.
Yeah.
And we have some friends that were at a party once, and they actually know they're energy vampires, and they're aware of it, and so you can tell them what they'll ask.
Yeah, like, is it okay if I feed off of you?
Right.
Because
Like, can I touch you or
Yeah.
hug you or
because they know as soon as they
So
do
they're self-aware.
that they're going to take from you. And for me, it was like, I'd been given all these like grounding techniques, like envision that your body, your feet is permanently planted in like sand or mud or dirt, and your brain is connected to the sky, right? That's typical grounding for most people, is that vision. Well, because I'm a fire sign on top of it, because, and I have an orange, what do they call it?
aura?
Yeah, but it's an orange centering. That my flame shows up as that bright orange. And to most people, some people also say purple, but I don't understand that one. But so the orange. So I finally, this person said, "I want you to try something with me." Instead of envisioning those two things, you just forget about the head, because you're a fire. You need to have something to vent up the top. Think about like a chimney. You just imagine your feet being on water. I don't care if it's a mud puddle, the ocean, a river. Imagine your feet being in water. And as soon as I started that visualization of being in water, I was able to ground myself and stop the energy vampires.
Yeah.
But if I don't pay attention to it, pretty soon.
I use oils for that. Like I like melaleuca, oregano, petitgrain, lemongrass. Like there's On Guard is great for people like it's great for viruses and stuff like that when you're trying to help your physical immune system, but it's also great for like parasitic kind of people that just want to like leech into you. So there's oils that do that. You can do that with all kinds of things. It's really interesting. There's not just one way, but you build boundaries, like Sarah talked about, practicing saying no, being really clear, like, ooh, I'm starting to feel drained. It's time for me to leave.
And knowing when your body
needs
to go to those places.
Not go to parties when you're tired or run down or vulnerable.
Except for me, and I might need to go to a party when I'm feeling tired and run down and vulnerable, because I need to restock. And
so you must be an extrovert then.
She's really
people.
extroverted.
And I'm really introverted,
I'm
like,
I'm an extrovert, no, introverted extrovert.
Okay.
Which means I enjoy doing things by myself a lot. And I don't know if that's out of choice or out of like where my life is driven.
Yeah.
Or
you're not
just
a needy extrovert.
No.
You still go through bouts of time of needing to be alone, and then you go through bouts of time where you really need to be interacting. And it just depends on, I think, honestly, in the group of people that we hang out with in general, that you have to take breaks, and that's just how it is. Just because our large group of people that are local that we hang out with, sometimes we need. I know I do, but I'm way more introverted. I am an introvert, but.
We should let Sarah have a chance.
Yeah.
She has an awesome story to tell too.
Not really, but.
Awesome, I mean,
sorry,
valuable and needs to be told, not necessarily fun to tell.
So I'm going to come from the point of view of trauma from females in my life. So growing up, I would say that a lot of trauma has come from the people around me that were female, not male. I mean, I have some male trauma. I think all women have a little bit of male trauma, but female-wise, it was like I would be extinguished. So when I was younger, I was a little bit more outgoing. I think we all are a little bit more outgoing when we're younger. And how I was raised was kind of to be more quiet anyways. And so I would respect that and be quiet. But when I had a certain friend that I grew up with, she would take every chance to kind of douse my flame. So I was constantly put don't put baby in the corner. I was put in the corner emotionally and sometimes quite literally, like even playing, like I would just be off to the side because maybe my personality was actually clicking with everybody a little bit better. And as I've grown up and realized how my personality is, I draw certain people in and I'm extremely open when I want to be. So because of that, people are drawn to me because they know they're going to get some sort of honest, almost grounding effect from me, and which is a great thing to have. I just really, like, I'm still learning how to use that in order to have my boundaries up because I'll get drained to the point of being non-functional and emotionally. So women in my life have really kind of shit on me, really, and caused me to have extreme mental, emotional breakdowns. And I didn't even understand what was going on until I got older. I got married. Then I went through some really big mental abuse. Can't even get into that right now, but that was huge. And when I got out of that marriage, and it took about 2-3 years for me to really process everything, and I had a life coach. So she did have some therapy techniques that she did with me. She wasn't like an actual psychologist or anything, but her coaching method really helped me learn how to do that for myself. So I only went to her about 6 times, but in that time frame, I was able to really journal and I would write things down. And I started writing down triggers, and I didn't know that they were triggers. It took me about a year to really look back, and I just back at my notes and be like, well, why am I feeling this right now? Yeah. And then I would look back and I realized it would be from, when I was 4 or 5, or it would be from when I was 10 or 12. And why have I started asking all the why questions, and I wasn't asking why to point blame. I was asking why to discover so I can move past it. And because I don't think that you should blame and stay in that place. When you do that, sometimes.
Well, then you're hurting yourself.
You're hurting yourself. I think there's a time for blame. I think that you have to go through it.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's when you stay as a victim instead of a survivor.
Right. And you don't want to stay as a victim because that's not
a victor.
Yeah. Because you don't want to. That's just an unhealthy place to be.
It's the process. It's the beginning, but we don't stay there.
Right. You don't want to stay there. And I'm still working through a lot of that because I only allow myself, because I compartmentalize really well. So I don't allow all my little files to come all out at once. And I take one out at a time, and I might put it away before I've completely dealt with it, which I think a lot of people do. But
Eric's like that.
Well, because sometimes
a lot of people are like that.
Sometimes it's just you can't deal with it. And I think over the past couple of years, as I've been in a good relationship, I've actually probably compartmentalized even more because I'm trying to protect that relationship so much. I don't want to let all my crazy out. So does anybody else want to let all their crazy out?
Safe times and spaces and places and people.
Right. So that's slowly been coming out more and more, and now it's time to really do like traumatic work. And so that's kind of why I think I decided to even get into oils, because I know that, I've heard you talk about all the emotional support it's given you. And so like even now I'm still hesitant when I take my oils out. Like you can probably attest to that. Like I'm very careful about it, and like
I'm smelling it and putting it on.
Yeah,
no.
You're like, what is this gonna do to me?
Probably not.
Like you really read into like looking at the book and looking at the wheel and deciding if that's the right thing to go together. And I literally just figured, can I smell it? And I'm like smelling all of it. I'm like, I'm gonna put some on here, and this one's gonna go here. No rhyme or reason. Just that's where my,
And she's all chaotic about it, and I'm like, I'm not ready for dealing with that today. So I'm gonna put that over there because it might really open something up. But
it is gentle. But there's
that is what I do.
That's why you have to be self-aware, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I know I can't deal with that right now.
And one time you told me that when you emotionally invest, you emotionally invest in people.
I do.
And once you've emotionally invested in them, you don't ever want to let them
I
go.
don't let them go.
Whether
Very easily.
whether it's a
We're like in the
relationship
build trust phase of the oils.
or the friendship. And I think you have the same relationship with the oils.
Yeah, they
I
all
would
have
say
their
so.
own personality.
Mhm.
You bring them to the party and they like have their own personality.
And I sort of open, like, when I first meet people, if I feel like their energy's good and we vibe and I'm like, ooh, I like this person. I like emotionally abandoned. Just throw it all out there. Let's see where we go with this.
Yeah, and then she comes home and tells me about this new person she met, and I'm like, oh, why don't you slow down a little bit? Because that's a little intense. She's like, it's fine. Okay. But
you jump and then worry if you have the parachute or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't let them into like, the little boxes on the inside.
well, and I think that's what it is. I think you can actually put your boundary up, and my boundary just goes completely away because I want to completely trust, because I feel like the more open and honest I am completely, that the better the relationship's going to be. And I'm talking about friendships, anything, like the better it's going to be. But that opens me up to a world of hurt, and it's often burned me. I'm trying to learn how to build up boundaries that are healthy for
It's not
that.
all or nothing.
How do you think those
I have some oils for that.
traumas provided that were done by female friends, how do you think that those have affected your sexual health?
Well, I would say that it's given me more critical self-outlook on my body, which is a weird one, because you would think that it would just be like the men.
Oh, no.
You
No,
know,
women are way more vicious
Oh,
to
no.
each
If
other.
women
If your
are so
girlfriend
much
doesn't
more
say,
mean.
You look like you did something, or like they don't honor like what you like the work you've been putting in or whatever. You're like, oh, I must not be doing enough.
Right.
Like it's like they just pull the plug and you're just deflated.
Mhm.
But what a girl says, like, you look really cute today, or I like your shirt or whatever, and you're like, oh, thanks. And
And I know a lot of
whereas if
criticism.
guys say it, you're like, oh, you think everyone looks good.
Well, and what's funny
Right.
is like,
It's a girl, she's walking by.
I appreciate the compliment, but you just have to say that because you think everyone's pretty.
I think I've had a lot of traumas from women early on in my developmental years that were all physically related to my body. And it actually made me morph my body into something it wasn't. And it caused me to become what I didn't want to become, what I thought I already was. And I think that rings true for a lot of women. And then you're just constantly comparing. And when you constantly compare like that, it's so unhealthy for you. Then you just start thinking about all the negative and even making up negative for yourself. That's not even true.
I with one of my past jobs, I call them past lives. One of my past lives,
Right.
I worked for a company that had a lot of employee network groups, and so like they had an LGBTQAI,
The alphabet.
the alphabet support group. They had one for African American employees. They had a female network, and
What's the benefit of working for a larger company?
I had an advantage because our regional manager was the head of the women's network, and she called me up one day and said, "I need a mentee," and I went, "Okay," and she goes, "No, in the support network," and I said, "Okay." And I go, "What does it mean?" And she goes, "Well, you get to do these things, and because you're mine, you get to go on this trip later on in the year. And she goes, we have to talk once a week and have lunch once a month, and And I said, "Okay." And something she told me, because she was the first female regional manager in our division ever.
Wow.
And then now she's a senior vice president, first female senior vice president in that particular division, which is a male-dominated
Got to have
division.
lots of boundaries.
And so she's like, I had to learn how to play in the boys' club, but still be a girl. And she said, something I found is that I was not very supportive of my other female coworkers. And she goes, because I was trying to prove myself so much to the men. And she gave me some interesting advice. She goes, every woman you meet, compliment them on something. She goes, don't tell them they look pretty, because that's dumb. She goes, but say something like, oh my gosh, I really love your shoes, or what a cute pattern on your shirt, or
That's really cute. I like how you put that together.
Yeah, or
That's a sincere compliment, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow.
I like those two.
Because that's not.
I would have
like
never put those patterns together, but oh my gosh, I love that. Or
good eye makeup. I'm like, wow. Like I keep looking at your eye makeup. Like, wow, it looks so natural and so beautiful.
or like there's a color like gosh,
For some people, it's easy.
gosh, that color of your eyeshadow really makes your eye pop. I'm making them like sincere. Like you have to believe your compliment, and I think we as women can help each other with trauma by giving those,
catty.
not being catty, and giving sincere compliments.
Mhm.
And so I tried that for a while, and so then I started doing it with our clients and my employees, and people that I met, our vendors, and it would be simple things like, gosh, those boots are really great.
Mhm.
Or I've never seen red soles on a shoe except on Louis Vuittons. How cool is that?
Well, and my eldest daughter, she's 15, when she meets somebody new and she's trying to make a friend, she feels like, oh, I'm just so awkward and blah, blah, blah. It took her many years to even get the courage to do that. It took her very many years. I mean, she was in middle school before she even found a good group of friends that she could relate to. She now is able to go up to people that maybe were in her class or whatever, and that's what she does. She goes up to them and she compliments them on something that they might be wearing or their smile or something like that. And she says it's really weird because sometimes they react to me like, oh gosh, are you gay? You know what I mean? And she's like, and just so you know, I'm not hitting on you. I'm just telling you. So our girls are programmed to automatically think it's somebody hitting on them. That is so unhealthy for women.
Or it's a catty compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
like what do they really
what
do they really mean? Like, okay, they say my pants are cute, but does that mean my shirt's ugly?
Right. She has to not preface, but sometimes she prefaces, sometimes afterwards she says, by the way, I'm being sincere, I'm not hitting on you or something.
Or trying to tear you down.
Right. So
and that's the product of like women competing instead of collaborating. And one thing I've learned, that we'll take it to the woo level, but women who are blocked in their sacral chakra will compete with each other. And so if you want to like learn about that, or you can ask me about that, there's lots of things you can do to support your sacral chakra. It can be a lifelong process, but
I shut down when that happens. When I feel like that's happening to me, I just
so do I.
It'll make me quit things.
I used to self-sabotage. I'd be like, you can win. I don't want to play that. You can win. You can be the pretty one. You can be the smart one. You can be whatever you want to be. Like, I'm okay with me.
I'm not playing.
But I'm not going to play that. And then,
that can limit you. That limits you.
Mm-hmm. Instead of being like, look, we're all unicorns. Like, that's why I have the Essential Unicorn Tribe. Like, we are all amazing.
Well, and I think that,
and we can all support each other. Like, and I always post things like, collaboration is the new competition, because like this is the culture that our doTERRA team, and really the culture of my life, it has to make the cut. Like if you're gonna be, but really also just realizing like there are things in you that need to be nurtured. And I'm lost for that. And if you vibe up, you can come and be in the tribe too, because there are people that have serious hurts. And I'm sensitive to that too, but.
Well, and Sarah and I have a really funny thing, because we both recognize, like, our birthdays are 2 days apart, which puts us in that, if you believe in astrology at all, and our Myers-Briggs are complementary, not the perfect ones, but they're complementary, and that we have some very similar things, even though she's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. And like we argue about really crazy things. But at the end of it, it's almost like a collaboration argument.
Yeah.
Sometimes we argue because we want to understand why the other person's thinking it. So we'll just keep pushing until we understand what the other person's coming from. And sometimes it's because we both are on the same page and we know that. We just are
emphasizing different parts of the same puzzle.
Yes. And once we figure out where our puzzle pieces fit with each other, it's funny, then we'll laugh and joke and
yeah, it all just comes together.
And Chris, her fiance, just sort of like, it's like, you guys are arguing the same thing, I think. Or he thinks we're mad at each other, and we're not at all. Because at the end of it, we're like, you want to watch some Gilmore Girls?
Right? You always bond over that.
No, but it's like we don't have any hard feelings.
No.
We're not like going to bed mad at each other for not storming out of the room. We might leave for a moment because we need to collect our thoughts.
Yeah.
That's you.
That's definitely me.
I have to Google.
Because
That's smart.
because I know that I'm hot-headed, so I'll just
Choose
react
the
like
room,
an Irish
I Google.
pepper or something.
Yeah, and I Google.
You Google and I get
That's
mad.
how we end all arguments in the South. What is Google?
But I think that is a healthy way
It
for
is.
women to be competitive with each other. Because some things are like,
Because we can bring out the best in each other and we can celebrate each other's like unique take on things. And then there's the full on like, oh, well, you're doing this, so now I have to do it, but I have to do it better. And
like we were able to play Monopoly together.
wow, that's intense.
Yeah,
That's
even
intense
though we
for a
were
friendship.
both
That's
competitive.
a long game. I'm like,
Oh, well, and we were playing the like Xbox version, which is great.
oh, okay.
But still, we were used to playing against both computer players, and we're playing against each other, and we were both like, we have very different like game plans on how to get to the end of the game, and both of us are like probably confused as to what the other one is doing, and we're both trying to win this game because that's the point of the game is winning.
Right. For you guys, for me, it's enjoying the thing. If it's not fun, I don't want to play. I don't care who wins. It's cool if I win, but
I mean, I
I
would
can
have
also
you.
let you win
Yes.
if I can have fun.
Yeah,
I cannot
exactly.
be a jerk about it.
Right. But I think there's
Just by
ways for
yourself.
women to be competitive with each other and still be supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and that's like, I'm gonna bring it back to oils real quick. Marjoram and lime together, Desiree Megan Dog taught this to us in our class, are really great for a heart wall, like to bring down a heart wall, but in a boundaried way. So marjoram helps you kind of know like who's safe to let in. So it's like the gatekeeper. So you put that, I believe, over your heart space. And for everybody, that's right in the middle of like their breastbone or, you know, men and women, it's right there. It's not this, it's your energetic heart space. And then lime, if you have more of a female energy, I'm doing this off memory, so I might be getting it wrong. I want to say you put it over your liver, and then if you have more of a masculine, you put it over your solar plexus. So just because I'm not looking at any notes, just give it a good swipe. You'll be fine. Oils will go in your bloodstream and get where they need to go, but it's really just the intention as well of where you're putting it. And then because lime's like that zest for life and like willing to kind of try again. And so these oils together really complement and they help you know like who's safe to trust and let in. And you would want to do that for like 5 days in a row. And that's a really cool protocol that that we've learned and I've played around with, and I'll even like do it on my kids or Eric when they feel like they're putting up a wall, and it's been really fun. And it's helped me as I've processed through the trauma to know like who to let in and who not to let in. And it's just a fun little hack. And then you know what to do with your marjoram oil. Because I never knew what to do with marjoram. I've probably gone through 4 or 5 bottles of marjoram since I started working with oils and emotions. Same with like coriander. Never used coriander before. I thought it smelled kind of weird. And then now I'm like, coriander. So do we have any like wrap up?
No, other than I think this 4-part session I think has really been self-enlightening. I know that we've all experienced different side effects, if you want to call them that. Some little purges that have happened. Some things that we probably need to, you know, take a couple of weeks and then all 3 have coffee together.
Yeah, probably.
Talk about them again, because I think that going back and us watching the videos themselves, I feel really fortunate to have been invited to be a part of your guys' thing.
Yeah, it's been awesome to have you. And that's the other thing that's come out of all of this healing process is that I could finally be heart level friends with other women, and I realized that I actually like working alongside other women, and I really like groups of 3. Like it's just something that I've learned over this last year is that collaboration and co-creation are kind of my jam. And so you're going to see a lot more videos where I interview people, and we all share from our different experience, because we all have different expressions and experience, but we all have a lot of things in common that are important. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fun. I
yeah,
enjoyed
it has
it.
been fun. Thank you.
So thank you for
Thank
everybody,
you.
and thank you for
Yeah.
who's been watching them, and
Hopefully you've taken some good nuggets, and hopefully you've like started body mapping. And I found a cool spot. It's like right here. I accidentally found it. I was just, I don't know what I was doing, but I was like, whoo!
that's a new spot.
So yeah, it was kind of fun. And then Eric and I had a really fun conversation about it. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
See where
body
all that
mapping, and then
body
share,
mapping
and then
leads.
share your
Yeah.
discoveries.
I know, like everything in my life, I feel like is off the edge of the map, where like the dragons are and the edge of the earth is. You know, you're gonna fall off. Like everything, spirituality, health, you know, all of it. It's like there's no map out there, and that's where I'm being called. So what's one more thing?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.